Welcome to our episode of InRange TV. Are you ready for some more firearms history? Because that's what we have for you today. During the U.S. Civil War, this was the standard issue revolver of the U.S. Army. This is the 1860 Colt. Cap and ball, percussion cap, powder, ball, essentially a muzzleloader. This is actually an original gun that was manufactured in 1871. And yes, they were making percussion revolvers that far into the 1870s and that far after the end of the U.S. Civil War. But obviously, after the Civil War, it was time to start considering a new service revolver. I feel like most people, when they think of the U.S. Army post-Civil War, during the quote-unquote Indian Wars, if they think about that at all, think about this, the Colt 1873 Single Action Army revolver. In fact, it's got Army in the name, 7.5-inch barrel, black powder cartridge chambered in the very powerful .45 Colt. But this was not the first modern cartridge revolver to be adopted for service in the U.S. Army. This is the 1869 Smith and Wesson No. It's a top rake revolver, in which, by opening it up, it ejects all the spent cartridges, and you have easy access to the chambers to reload. Upon reloading, you close it, and you're ready to fire again. This is what the U.S. Army adopted in 1870. Now, it's a top rake, but it's not a Schofield. I feel like everyone nowadays sees this and they think, oh, that's a Schofield. That has become a misnomer. The Schofield is a modification of the No. 3 Smith and Wesson top rake revolver, and it is a variant in that model series, but not all top rake revolvers, not even all large frame top rake revolvers are Schofields. Topic for another video. But in 1869, this was absolutely the most modern revolver on the market. This was still a few years out, and Smith and Wesson had a lead. The U.S. Army adopted this in a cartridge called .44 American, which was a heel-based bullet that meant the lubrication of the bullet was actually exposed to the elements, and it was one of the first not great design choices of this gun was that cartridge. In 1871, the Russians showed interest in this, and they adopted this same gun in the first Russian model. There were subsequent Russian models after this, and they are the ones that chambered it in a new cartridge called .44 Russian, which was a great leap forward in terms of modernization of cartridges. In fact, we'll have another video about that someday. The .44 Russian cartridge landed up becoming a very popular cartridge around the world for its accuracy and reliability, even in the Old West. But it was still the same gun, the 1869 No. 3 Smith and Wesson revolver. So going from this, the 1860 percussion cap Colt, to this, the 1869 Smith and Wesson No. 3 top rake revolver, must have really felt like a big leap into the future. It does take two hands to operate. One, you have to have one hand on the grip and another hand to open the lock on the top to break it open, at which point you'll see the ejector ejects all the cartridges, spent or loaded, out of the gun, at which point you have access to load all 6, close it back up, and get back to work. So this gun actually handles pretty well, although it has perhaps the worst sights of any revolver I've ever handled. It looks like some sort of old-timey barcode. There's 2 little posts in the rear and a post in the front, and when you get the sight picture, it's just 3 lines in a row. Even if you weren't misaligning the front sight with the rear posts, it's just slow and hard to acquire and difficult to see with complicated terrain. So the sights are pretty much horrendous. In terms of speed of reloading and unloading, obviously it is much faster than the Colt Single Action Army, which would pose the question, why, if this was the first modern cartridge revolver adopted by the U.S. Army, why would they 3 years later replace it with the Colt Single Action Army, which is of course much slower to load and unload? You have to open the loading gate and eject one cartridge at a time, insert one cartridge at a time, which with this, of course, boom, they all eject, and you have access to all 6 chambers. And the answer is pretty simple. One, they preferred the power of the .45 Colt, even though they landed up downgrading that power not long after adopting it. But it was just more resilient in the field. It is a more rugged design. And while this is not a fragile design, compared to the Colt Single Action Army, it's definitely more fragile. And so that means in the field, when you're far away from resupply, far away from the base, far away from any form of repair, the likelihood of this failing on you was greater than that of the Colt Single Action Army. So when you add up that the Colt brought more power to the table and the fact that it was more likely to be resilient and reliable in the field, in spite of the fact that it was slower to load and unload, that made the equation simple. It was better to go with the mostly foolproof Colt Single Action Army than it was this more modern design. Now, 2 years after the adoption of the Colt Single Action Army in 1873, in 1875, we see the brief adoption of the a variant of the number 3 Smith and Wesson, which we now call the Schofield. Again, this is not a Schofield, but this became a Schofield. And so the idea of this break top, load and unload was really irresistible, and I get it, because the ability to do that, this changes the game if you need to reload. And the Schofield hit the field. It didn't last long either, and they reverted completely back to the Colt Single Action Army again for a very long time. There are instances in which the speed of reload and unload is less important than a gun that just works all the time. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this historical adventure with me. Cool gun, really the origin of what was to come, the grandfather of the Schofield, and yes, the first cartridge revolver adopted by the U.S. Army. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Everyone thinks of the Colt, but this was there for a little while first. And in civilian hands, this was a very popular gun. You see this being used by Virgil Earp, Wyatt Earp. In fact, this is probably the origin of the buntline myth with Wyatt Earp. Video for another day. At least one of these was present at the OK Corral gunfight in the hands of Virgil Earp. Maybe two, if you include Wyatt Earp. Again, video for another day. But this, again, in civilian hands makes a lot of sense. In a specialist hands, makes a lot of sense. Mass issued to a large army that is traveling across the country with really difficult resupply chain, maybe not so much so. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the kind of stuff we like doing here on InRange. Really, it's you, the viewer, that keep this channel alive. This is the kind of content that doesn't necessarily go to the top of the YouTube recommendations, but because of you and people like you, we're still here doing this cool history. Patreon.com/InRangeTV. If you're already one of our supporters, thank you so much. Early access to brutality matches, Discord server, sometimes some special content. If you can consider it, please do. Literally every dollar counts. Patreon.com/InRangeTV. If you can't, I understand. Hit subscribe, click the bell. But more importantly, if you know someone that's interested in this sort of history or this topic or revolvers or whatever, or other content on the channel, please just share it with them. Post it to forums. Be our organic algorithm in spite of the AI algorithm. Anyways, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.